Welcome back to A New Eden. I am Rachel and I am so grateful that you are here. Today we are going to be looking at the energy that is available to us from the week of June 15th until the 22nd, 2026. And before we begin, I want to remind you that this message is timeless. So whether you are hearing it the day it's posted or months from then, trust that if you've landed here, there may be something in this conversation meant specifically for you. Now, take a deep breath and allow yourself to fully arrive in this moment. Maybe place a hand on your heart. Notice your breath, notice your body, and notice what resonates as we move through the wisdom of this week. And remember, you don't need to take everything with you. You can simply receive what's meant for you and just leave the rest. So astrologically, this is a significant week. There may be new information, unexpected shifts, and moments where we need to shift course. But what's interesting with all of these changing circumstances is that the cards are not encouraging us to rush into action. They're encouraging us to stay grounded. This week's wisdom feels a lot less like make a dramatic move and more like trust the path that you're already on. So while the world around us might feel like it's rearranging itself, we're being reminded to focus on what's real, what's growing, and what is directly in front of us. The message of this week is very simple. We don't need to force the next chapter. We do not need to know all of the answers. We do not need to rush this process. We're being invited to stay connected to our truth, tend to what has already been entrusted to us, and trust that consistency often creates more transformation than urgency ever could. So let's get into the tarot wisdom for this week. This week, we begin with clarity. The King of Swords asks us to see things as they are, not as we fear they are, not as we wish they were, but as they actually are. So this week really favors discernment, objectivity, truth, clear communication. The advice here is don't let emotions make decisions that wisdom should make. That does not mean bypass and ignore your feelings. It just means to allow truth and wisdom to sit in the driver's seat. Then we move into the Queen of Pentacles. I love her following the King of Swords because she brings the energy down into the body. She's practical, grounded, nurturing. She is not worried about what might happen 6 months from now. She's tending exactly what is in front of her. So the Queen of Pentacles reminds us to water the garden that we're standing in, to care for what is already growing, and to focus on what is tangible. So then we have the Fool reversed, and this is where things get interesting. The Fool reversed is not saying don't take risks. It's saying don't leap simply because you're uncomfortable about where you are. This week asks for intentionality, not impulsiveness, not recklessness, not forcing a new beginning before it's ready. Sometimes spiritual growth is not a leap. Sometimes it is a deliberate step. And that's exactly where the Knight of Pentacles comes in. The Knight of Pentacles is arguably the least exciting knight in the deck. And thank goodness for that, because he's the one who finishes things. He's steady, reliable, consistent. He understands that big dreams are built with small daily actions. The advice here is don't underestimate the power of one small step repeated consistently. And we end with the Six of Cups. And this softens everything. This card can speak of nostalgia, innocence, childhood, old dreams, familiar people, and remembering what matters. But in this spread, it feels a lot less like the past returning and more like remember who you are beneath all the striving. Remember what you loved before you had to prove yourself. Remember what brings you genuine joy. Remember the parts of you that are still worth nurturing. So this week doesn't feel like a week for dramatic moves. It feels like a week for wisdom over reaction, grounded action over impulsive action, and consistency over intensity. We don't need to force the next chapter. We simply need to keep showing up for the one that we're already in. This actually reminds me of when Nehemiah is rebuilding the wall. Nehemiah receives a vision. He doesn't immediately run out and start building. He assesses, he plans, he gathers his resources, and then he begins, stone by stone and day by day. The miracle was not that the wall appeared poof overnight. The miracle was that he stayed faithful to the work that was in front of him. That's the energy here. The Fool reverse says, don't rush. The Knight of Pentacles says, keep building. The Queen of Pentacles says, tend to what you have. And the King of Swords says, stay focused on the truth. Before we close, I want to leave you with something to sit with this week. And as always, don't worry about finding the perfect answer right away. Sometimes the value isn't in answering the question, it's allowing the question to work on us throughout the week. So the journal prompt is, what am I invited to build, nurture, or trust right now? And what would it look like to take the next faithful step? Notice that this question is not asking you to map out the next 5 years. It's not asking you to have all the answers. It's simply asking, what is right in front of me? What is God placing in my hands today? Maybe take some time this week and just journal freely. Notice what comes up without judgment and without the need to immediately act on it. And a mantra that you can carry with you is, I trust what's growing, even when I cannot see the full picture. I'll say that one again. I trust what is growing, even when I cannot see the full picture. This is a beautiful mantra for this season of transition because so much growth happens beneath the surface. Seeds don't question whether they're becoming flowers. They simply grow. And sometimes we're being asked to do the same. So when uncertainty shows up this week and you feel tempted to rush and force an outcome, take a breath, place your hand on your heart, and remind yourself, I trust what is growing, even when I cannot see the full picture. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. If this message resonated and you'd like to receive a personal reading or dive deeper into the themes that are unfolding in your life, I would love to chat and see if we are a good fit. You can find all of my offerings in the show notes or the description or the bio, depending on what platform you're seeing this on. So until next time, stay grounded, stay curious, stay open, and remember, sometimes the thing you're waiting for is not meant to show up all at once. Sometimes it's built one faithful step at a time. See you next week.